Today we're at the Belfry and I think we're down for some sort of mad scientist, ultra techie club fitting. We're talking wedges today with Edel. Now they of course built Bryson's first one length set and they have lots of unique fitting tools. So this could be really interesting. Let me know if you've had a fitting this in depth before.
So every fitting starts with biomechanical assessment. First thing we're going to do is basically come over here, I guess. Just get a height measurement. So we're going to get you basically shoulder width apart, so you're going to hit your 7-iron.
Okay.
Yeah. And from there, just stand straight and look straight ahead. So we'll put you at 65 inches in old money.
I don't know what that means. What's that in feet?
Well, so 5'5", 165 centimeters. That's with your golf shoes on, though. So we'll give you that. And your insoles. Right, so next one is very simple. Just like Da Vinci Man it. There we go. And we'll get you to hold that with your thumb. And go across just your upper chest. And equidistant, so 65. Okay? Mm-hmm. What's interesting is the more equidistant a golfer is, the more classical our swing tends to look.
Oh, God.
Okay? So what's interesting, if you were to look at players on tour that have the swings that we all want, so the Adam Scotts, the Louis Oosthuizens, the Tigers, mm-hmm. they're usually very close to equidistant, or symmetrical. When you start to get away from that, then you start to get some interesting shapes and sizes. Mm-hmm. So, for example, like Sergio Garcia, Jim Furyk, Matt Wolff, all of these guys usually have greater discrepancy or diversion away from symmetry.
Yeah.
Effectively, what they're doing is they found a way for their body to work to get it back to impact.
So you're saying in theory I should be swinging it like Adam Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But from what I've heard, we're already there, so don't worry.
See why Bryson was into Edel. A lot of times you just get given stuff, but you don't necessarily know why. Exactly.
And what we're trying to do is answer the question. Some people don't want to know. They just want to be said, there's your club, hit it, and it works. For some of us who are more inclined to understanding like the backstory and trying to like make sure that all the bases are covered, then Edel's a good system.
I don't know everything. Tell me everything. Everything.
To start you off, this is exactly the same shaft as you have, so it should feel comparable. Yeah. And what we'll do is we'll just take a look at how the weights are affecting how you're delivering the wedge to the ball. Maybe the tech that goes into an Edel wedge is slightly different than a lot of the other manufacturers. So obviously the thing that stands out is the weights in the back of the club. So we've got anywhere from 2 to 12 gram weights. So basically we can dial in any amount. The other thing that we can do is that we usually, and this is what we're testing now, we put a heavy weight either in the left center or heel. That will influence how you release the club. And it should have a predominant, we should be able to match up how you deliver it with a setting that works best for you. We're basically just looking at what the actual weights will do. And then once we go through it, we'll start looking at shafts and then into grinds. And again, it's not that we're moving enough weight to necessarily elicit a change in like the center of gravity or anything like that. Some of the tour guys that I fit and work with, they'll be able to decipher, even if they don't look at where the club is, where the heavy weight is. So we might be able to move it just a couple of mil towards the toe, and they'll feel that, and they'll say, feels heavier. We'll put it towards the heel, and they'll be able to pick on that and say it feels lighter. They're special.
You're saying I'm not going to be able to tell?
Well, I think you might. Yeah, let's see.
I shallowed that last one out a bit.
So let's take a quick look. Again, we just look at the data. So obviously the last one you shallowed out a little bit there.
Yeah.
But left aim bias with the center weight, nothing's changed except moving the 6 to the toe. And even without the lie angle, we've got to the center line.
Yeah, it's mad how much straighter they were going just by changing that.
Yeah, 6 grams.
How far left's it gonna go if I put them in the other side?
Well, we'll try it next. Yeah, we'll get you to let's get you one more just to see if we can get one more angle of attack, just so we have some decent numbers. We have a decent data set, and then we'll swap the weights around and try the last configuration. So fairly consistent, right around 3.5 for angle of attack. A lot of people look at it and say, well, there's no way that 6 grams would make that amount of difference. But then you hit it and it's like, oh,
I don't think people realize how small things are. Like people bringing out a new driver and then moving stuff by a few millimeters, and it's making a difference. So
Absolutely.
I think it's just because you're so used to big numbers, you don't realize how small it is with golf that affects things.
Oh, and the other thing to keep in mind too, it's you're changing weight at the end of a fixed length. So, we always use that. If I asked you to hold that, I say, can you hold that for how long? And you say, yeah, no problem. I can hold it all day. You could, it's no problem. But if I ask you to hold it like that, within a couple of minutes, our arms will shake and we can't. So as soon as we start to basically fiddle with weight at the end of our golf club, it just amplifies what we're doing. We can do a lot up here, but once we start working with that, it can really change things quickly.
So what are you looking at, like, to see improve or change or?
Yeah, so I think what we're trying to get to, and you'll see this in the putter fitting too, is that performance obviously is really important for a better player, but also once we get the big things out of the way, we want to open up that door and say, how do you feel about that? Do you like the way that the ball starts? Do you like the way that it looks? Do you like that shot shape? If we can influence that and give you a bit more confidence, even from a feel side, then we'll try and get that as well. So again, we've held the consistency and angle of attack, which is really, really good. Mm-hmm. So that seems to be fairly consistent. As we're moving around away from the C taper, we're starting to get basically a higher ball flight. Again, it's not extortionate. It's not that we're losing anything by going there. It's just that better players will be more comfortable usually hitting a lower trajectory because they know they can impart the spin needed in order to check it. So it's one of those. So far, it's held true that the better performing shafts are on basically the weightier end, the meatier end of the spectrum with regards to weight. So, and that's where sometimes it's really good for me as a fitter to basically say, okay, we're at 120, 125. Let's just give you something at 90 just to see what happens.
Oh dear.
There we go.
Some interesting dispersions there.
So we know the combination is heel weight. We've got KBS, C taper 120, stiff, which is exactly what you were in before. So that's good. It shows two things. One, not that we didn't try, we done our due diligence, but you had a good wedge fitting before and they got you to a shaft that works for you and it feels good for you. Yeah. What I want to do now is basically just look at, we're going to keep the heavy weight in the heel, but I'm just going to add a 10 and then a 12. And we'll just see how you do with slightly different swing weight. And then we can go into fitting for grind. From there, so we've got the 10 in. So we've all dialed in now that we've done all our heavy lifting. And then we're going to go over, I'll set up the wedges in the 58. So they're exactly the same setup as what you've got here. And then we'll go have some fun with some grinds.
Cool.
Bounce gives us that extra layer of kind of insurance. If we hit and bounce into it, we know what that does. We hit it thin and skull it, whatever it is. If we chunk it and hit it a bit fat, our wedge grind should offset that as well. So basically, once we get fit for a grind, it should just give us a little bit more of a cushion either side, because we're not going to flush it every single time, especially with our wedges off difficult lies. But the club should be working for us as opposed to against us. Oftentimes with these in this part of the fitting, the one thing I'm looking at as well a lot is just consistency as far as trajectory and height. So if we can hit it and we get it consistent, if we're high, low, and we're getting fats and thins, then we'll move on to something a little bit different. There we go.
That was nice.
Dialed in on this one. But straight away you went from like slightly like square club face to playing a little bit forward, a little bit of shaft lean, and then being able to hit that kind of low punchy shot with a bit of rip on it. So
felt nice.
It's a good start.
spinny. Very spinny. This is my nemesis shot as well.
And we're trying to make you uncomfortable, is basically what we're trying to do.
I'm so bad at 30 yards. That's where I lose all my points on my pitching tests. Would you have the same grind in every wedge?
The way that they've been designed is that once we get you fit into a particular grind, whether that's C, T, V, D, P, whatever it might be, is that through the different lofts, they're dynamic. So it's not just that it's identical. So what you'll find with a lot of manufacturers is that, oh, I really like that grind. And you'll say, can I have it in a 52? And they're like, well, no, we only make it in a 56 or a 58.
Yeah.
What Edel has done is effectively kept the grinds consistent. So they perform the same way, give you the same characteristics, but through 48 through 62. So we can basically give you, once we fit you for a grind and we're confident that it works, then we're fairly confident it'll work through all the different lofts. And that's all been done. So again, I think the only manufacturer really that produces every single grind in every single loft, but dynamic through. So just because you have a T grind, it doesn't mean it's exactly the same as a T grind in a 50 to a 60. There will be some difference, but overall the premise of it is the same.
That came out a lot lower. It stopped quick though.
Yep.
I scooped that.
When we do our fittings, we kind of say, we talk about the Goldilocks effect. Because we can isolate one variable and then test for that, effectively it's like too hot, too cold, no, just right. Too firm, too soft, no, just right. And once we do that through shaft weight, shaft flex, heavy weight in the back of the head, swing weight, grind, and we put that all together, and we say, right, there's your club. It's like, okay, well, I know that all works. As opposed to, that one should work for me, let's go with that.
Some wedges feel really chunky on the sole. Like you can't do much with it, where a lot of these, even though they're different, you still feel like you can manipulate them a lot, which is quite interesting. Like sometimes I think I end up going just for the low bounce option because it's the only one where you can move the face around and it don't feel like you're gonna like hit it with the leading edge, whereas all of these feel like you can do a lot with them.
Oh. That's a fairly consistent performer, that one.
Yeah. It's a bit heavy.
Personally,
yeah,
I like the T, which is where we were before. We will set up the T in all three, so 50, 54, 58. Then we can go and have some fun, some different lies over there.
Nice. I've been thinning loads of bunker shots lately, but I don't feel like I can do it with this. Well, she says. There's plenty of time left, yeah.
So what we find too is oftentimes if we can get it to work on like a lie like that, quite tight, not the most forgiving, that once we move into these types of lies, then it just, we actually have a little bit more forgiveness.
Done.
Because we can look at, say, the 50 or the 58, the 54, we can start saying, okay, if that's your stock, like bunker shot, just normal setup, and you know it goes 15 yards, then we can give you the 54 and the 50, and you can also hit those bunker shots.
Yeah, because they're all the same.
All the same, yep.
I think I would rather have a 54 though.
54. So let's see, I mean, this is a good test. Because if we can get a 54, and you can use it out of the bunker.
Well, that's the problem. I don't really have a club to go up to.
Don't have to treat that any different than the 58.
That's good.
Every time we do this in any type of fitting, and then we go down to 50 and it's like, oh, I can't hit a bunker shot with a 50. And you're like, no, trust it, you can. And it just goes a little bit further.
Yeah.
That's fine. And we're used to that concept when we use our irons. Like 6 iron goes further than a 9 iron. And we get used to that. But there's no reason why we can't do the same with our wedges once they're fit for us.
What's quite good is there's enough height on it, 'cause sometimes I struggle to get enough height on it. I just like knuckleball them a bit. Probably because I have so little bounce on my 58. I could stay here all day now. I don't know when you guys are leaving, but
Pretty confident though that we've got something that really works for you.
I feel like we've nailed it.
Yep.
So, how much have we changed then? Heavier swing weight in the heel.
Heavier swing weight overall. So that's the interesting thing. So if we measured this, the mass of the club, effectively it's 2 grams heavier. But swing weight's moved up, so probably D5 somewhere in there. But again, this is one thing that you won't have in any other, is that we got really consistent angle of attack when we moved it to the heel. If you remember when we were in the center, a little bit of a left bias, toe even further left bias, and then heel back. So even without having adjusting it or bending it, we've got you basically straight down the line and got everything dialed in. It's just a matter if your predominant shot shape was starting a bit right and bringing it back in, bit of a draw. We're starting it at the line and it's going a little bit left. So we probably bend it 1 or 2 degrees just to make sure that we start you right and then bring it back. So overall, shaft is pretty much there. Grind is definitely a bit different. And then the weight is a little bit heavier in the head, but that might just give you a little bit more feeling of where that club is throughout your swing.
I think it feels a lot more controlled being heavier. And I like the fact now I can basically chip with every club and they're all the same.